Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. When you picture an international summit, you probably imagine somber world leaders gathered around a polished table, speaking in hushed tones behind closed doors. For most of history, that picture was fairly accurate, but today it's a relic. The world of international diplomacy, once a fortress of secrecy and carefully worded statements, has been blown wide open by the digital revolution. The real summit, the modern battle for global influence, isn't just happening in the conference room. It's happening live, in public, on the very same social media feeds you scroll through every day. A leader's post on X can now carry the same weight as a formal address. The fight to control the online narrative has become as crucial as any agreement forged in person. Today, we're delving into the complex and fascinating geopolitics of international summits in the digital age to understand how the very fabric of global power has been rewoven for the 21st century. Let's start with how we got here. For centuries, summits were the exclusive territory of a small club of diplomats and heads of state. Think of the post-World War II conferences at Yalta and Potsdam, where the Allied leaders literally redrew the map of the world. Or the tense, high-stakes meetings between American and Soviet leaders during the Cold War. These events were defined by secrecy. The public learned about them through heavily filtered official communiques long after the decisions were made. The first cracks in this wall of secrecy appeared with the advent of the 24-hour news cycle. Suddenly, cameras were everywhere, and journalists were providing constant updates, introducing a new layer of public scrutiny and media pressure. But the true sea change, the event that shattered the old model, was the explosion of digital and social media. Platforms like X, Facebook, and Instagram democratized the flow of information on a scale never seen before. Leaders could now completely bypass the traditional media gatekeepers, the major newspapers and television networks, and speak directly to a global audience. This has fundamentally transformed summits from isolated elite events into sprawling, real-time global spectacles. Every motorcade, every handshake, every off-the-cuff remark is captured, analyzed, and debated by millions of people instantly. The COVID-19 pandemic then hit the fast-forward button on this transformation. With international travel shut down, diplomacy was forced online. High-stakes negotiations happened over secure video links. While these virtual gatherings were a logistical marvel, they also laid bare the irreplaceable value of face-to-face interaction. Building trust, reading body language, having those crucial informal conversations in the corridors, these things are incredibly difficult to replicate through a screen. But even as in-person meetings have returned, the impact of that forced experiment is permanent. Digital interaction is no longer an afterthought. It's a core component of modern diplomacy. So, in this new era, what's in the diplomatic toolkit? It has expanded dramatically. Nations now wield a diverse array of digital instruments to advance their interests. The most visible of these is what you could call the digital megaphone. Social media has become an indispensable tool for public diplomacy. Long before a summit even begins, foreign ministries and leaders are deep into online campaigns to set the agenda, frame key issues in their favor, and build a coalition of public support. A well-crafted social media campaign can significantly boost a nation's soft power, its cultural and ideological influence, by showcasing its values, its innovations, and its contributions to the global community. This direct line of communication also allows governments to react with unprecedented speed during a crisis, managing public perception and disseminating critical information before rumors can take hold. This digital world has ushered in an era of what looks like radical transparency. Live-stream speeches, real-time blog updates from journalists embedded with delegations, and the constant fire hose of information on social media create the impression of a completely open and accessible process. However, this transparency is a classic double-edged sword. While it can hold leaders accountable, it also seriously complicates the delicate art of negotiation. Many breakthroughs in history have only been possible because negotiators had the privacy to explore controversial ideas and make concessions without immediate public backlash. Today, that privacy is gone. The constant public scrutiny can lead to what some call a performance of diplomacy, where the optics of a summit, how things look to the audience back home, become more important than the substantive agreements being hammered out. And here we enter the shadows. The very platforms that enable this transparency are also vulnerable to manipulation and malicious use. This brings us to the Shadow Summit, a darker, clandestine layer of digital competition that hums beneath the surface of every major international gathering. Cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns have become disturbingly common tools for disrupting and influencing these events. State-sponsored actors may try to hack into the email accounts and communications of a rival delegation, hoping to steal sensitive information about their negotiating strategy. They might launch denial-of-service attacks to crash a summit's website or internal networks, causing chaos and confusion. Alongside the hacking, there are the disinformation campaigns. These are often spread by vast networks of automated social media bots and human-run troll farms. Their goal is to sow discord, to discredit opponents with fake stories, and to undermine the very legitimacy of a summit's outcomes. These tactics are especially powerful when dealing with contentious issues like climate change or international security, where public opinion can be easily swayed by emotionally charged and deliberately misleading narratives. The constant threat of these shadow summits means that cybersecurity has become a critical part of summit planning, right alongside physical security. Looking to the future, the next frontier is already here. Big data and artificial intelligence are poised to revolutionize diplomatic strategy. Governments are increasingly using sophisticated data analytics to gauge global public opinion on key issues, to run complex simulations modeling the potential outcomes of negotiations, and to identify hidden points of leverage they can use against their rivals. AI-powered tools are emerging that can assist diplomats by analyzing vast quantities of text to find key insights, by providing real-time language translation that is more nuanced than ever before, and even by identifying patterns in global crises that a human analyst might miss. As AI becomes more advanced, some experts predict the rise of algorithmic diplomacy. Imagine an AI that could analyze the stated positions of two rival nations, identify a potential compromise that satisfies the core needs of both, and even help draft the treaty language. While this could make diplomacy more efficient, it also opens a Pandora's box of ethical and security concerns. Can we trust an algorithm to make decisions that require deep human values, like empathy and moral judgment? Is there a risk of algorithmic bias, where the AI reflects the prejudices of its creators? And what happens when nations get into a new kind of arms race, competing to build the most powerful diplomatic AI? This digital revolution hasn't just changed the tools of diplomacy, it's changing the players on the world stage. The traditional model, where nation-states were the only actors that mattered, is being challenged from all sides. We're witnessing the dramatic rise of non-state actors. First and foremost are the multinational tech corporations. Companies like Google, Meta, Apple, and Microsoft have become geopolitical players in their own right. The platforms they control are the new public squares where much of the world's political discourse happens. Their corporate decisions about content moderation, data privacy, and cybersecurity aren't just business choices. They have profound international implications. When they decide to ban a world leader or change their privacy policy, it ripples across the globe. Then you have non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, and civil society groups. They have masterfully harnessed digital tools to amplify their message. They can organize global campaigns, fact-check leaders, statements in real time during a summit, and mobilize enormous public pressure to influence negotiations on everything from human rights to environmental protection. Even individuals, from citizen journalists breaking stories on their blogs to hacktivists who leak sensitive documents, can now play a significant role in shaping the narrative around major international events. Within this crowded and complex new landscape, one central conflict has come to define our era: the technological and digital rivalry between the United States and China. This competition for supremacy is a core feature of 21st century geopolitics. It's a clash of ideologies. The US has traditionally championed a vision of a free and open internet, emphasizing free expression and the free flow of information. China, on the other hand, has promoted a model of cyber sovereignty, which prioritizes state control and the right of a nation to govern the internet within its own borders. This fundamental disagreement plays out constantly in international forums and at summits like the G20. When leaders debate issues like the security of 5G infrastructure, the rules for cross-border data flows, or the ethics of artificial intelligence, these are often proxy battles in the larger US-China struggle for influence. This competition is also manifested in massive, competing infrastructure initiatives. China's Digital Silk Road aims to finance and build digital infrastructure like fiber optic cables and data centers across Asia, Africa, and Europe, embedding its technology and standards along the way. As a counter, the US has led initiatives like the Build Back Better World partnership, seeking to offer developing nations an alternative path for digital development. Caught in the middle of this bipolar tech competition, the European Union has skillfully carved out a unique and surprisingly powerful role for itself as a global regulatory superpower. Through landmark legislation like the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, and the Digital Services Act, the EU has established a comprehensive, human-centric model for digital governance that prioritizes individual privacy and rights. Because the EU represents such a massive and wealthy market, its rules have a global impact. This is known as the Brussels effect. Rather than creating different products or policies for different regions, many multinational tech companies find it simpler and more cost-effective to just adopt the EU's high standards across all of their global operations. The EU now strategically leverages this regulatory power as a key tool of its foreign policy, effectively exporting its digital model and influencing global norms without firing a single shot. You can see these dynamics play out clearly if you look at specific summits. The G20, a forum for the world's largest economies, is a key battleground for debates over digital taxation, data flows, and how to regulate tech giants. Social media becomes a parallel stage where leaders communicate their positions directly to their home audiences, often in language that is much starker and more populist than the carefully negotiated text of the final communiqué. The annual COP climate summits are another prime example. On one side, you have scientists relying on incredibly complex digital models and data visualizations to inform the negotiations. On the other, you have activists using social media to mobilize global protests and put maximum pressure on leaders. But these summits are also prime targets for sophisticated disinformation campaigns that aim to undermine climate science and derail progress. Even within a smaller group of supposedly like-minded democracies like the G7, digital issues can expose and amplify internal divisions. For years, the G7 has struggled to find a common position on how to tax major tech companies, reflecting a deep transatlantic rift. So where is all this heading? The fusion of diplomacy and digital technology is only going to deepen. The future of international summits will likely be defined by a few key trends. First, hybrid summits are the new reality. The pandemic normalized virtual participation in high-level meetings. The future will almost certainly be a blend of in-person and remote attendance. But this raises new and tricky geopolitical questions about access and influence. Who gets a coveted seat at the physical table, and who is relegated to a face on a screen? Does the virtual participant have the same ability to influence the outcome? Second, the dawn of algorithmic diplomacy is approaching. As we discussed, AI will become more integrated into foreign policy, analyzing negotiating positions and identifying potential compromises. While this could enhance efficiency, it also carries the risk of a new kind of algorithmic arms race in diplomatic capabilities. And yet, for all of this breathtaking technological change, the final and perhaps most important trend is the enduring importance of the human element. Despite the proliferation of digital tools, the core components of successful diplomacy, trust, empathy, and the building of personal relationships remain as crucial as ever. Technology is a powerful enabler, but it cannot replace the nuanced understanding and moral judgment that are essential for navigating complex geopolitical challenges. The art of diplomacy, even in the digital age, will ultimately depend on the wisdom, creativity, and skill of the diplomats themselves. To wrap up, the digital age has irrevocably altered the landscape of international summitry. What were once contained, private diplomatic encounters have become open, multifaceted, and fiercely contested global events. Success in this new environment requires much more than traditional statecraft. It demands a mastery of the digital domain. Leaders and nations must now be equally adept at shaping online narratives, securing their digital networks, and influencing the rules of our new digital world. The great geopolitical struggles of the 21st century will be defined not only by what happens in the negotiating room, but by the battles waged and won in the sprawling, evolving digital world that we all share. Thanks for listening to Fun Facts Online.